There is a slight touch on the ball, but that doesn't negate the fact that Pope has come out a little bit recklessly and collided with Gyokeres. I mean, I think it's a penalty.
This isn't clearly and obviously wrong, is it? If he doesn't get pulled back by Nathan Collins, he gets control of the ball. Therefore, it's got to be a red card.
If you freeze frame that and you remove the defender Collins, look where Mbeumo is, look where the ball is. That was a clear red card offence in my opinion.
There is a hand that goes up from Mo Salah.
I've looked at this a lot and I just don't see a handball in this situation.
He deemed that there was no conclusive evidence that Gusto made any contact with Minte's head.
It's a penalty kick, isn't it? I think it should be seen on field by the referee. I think this will go down as an error.
Welcome to Men in Black, your weekly podcast that dives into all the big refereeing decisions from across the top flight. I'm Sam Matterface and I'm joined as always by the former Premier League referee Chris Foy, who has a tougher job explaining decisions than Keegan Bradley this morning. We could fill a full 2-hour show analysing all the VAR and refereeing incidents from the weekend. Also this week, we talk Mark Clattenburg, who's taken to social media to attack Howard Webb's reign, saying that it's been a failure, his running of the PGMOL. We'll get Chris's view on that. And remember, if you want to go back and listen to any of the programmes that we've done before, then you can go on the talkSPORT YouTube channel or in the Premier League All Access feed, wherever you get your podcasts. Deja vu for Newcastle at St James's Park as a late goal kills them, but Arsenal fight back for victory. But there was a few decisions to look at.
Nick Pope brings down Victor Gyokeres, and it is a penalty for Arsenal.
It's a Stonewall penalty in my eyes.
VAR are checking it. Pope plays the ball according to Jarrod Gillett. No foul, penalty overturned.
Are you telling me that that's a clear and obvious mistake? Is that what you're telling me?
Well, it's Anthony Elanga bearing down the penalty area. Gabriel goes sliding in to make the tackle. I think the ball does hit his arm. I'm not sure you can give a penalty for that.
Well, it comes off Saliba's leg, I think, before it actually reaches his arm.
And that's the point the referee has just made. He just pointed to his leg.
Yeah.
So it won't be a penalty. No handball.
So let's start at St James's Park, Chris. Arsenal Twitter went wild with this, and I get it. Because in real time, with no forensic explanation, this looks like a penalty. And the explanation is that after review, the Newcastle goalkeeper was deemed to play the ball, and therefore it's no foul. For years, we've been told, I got the ball is no longer a defence in law. Why is it here?
Well, I think in the first instance, Sam, I'm with you. I thought when I watched this in real time, it was a penalty, and it was a good on-field decision by Jarrod Gillett. He took his time, pointed to the spot. And then when you unpick this, you can clearly see there's a slight touch on the ball by Nick Pope, and the VAR, obviously Darren England, has looked at this, and in his opinion, he felt that it was worthy of review. He felt it was a clear error by the referee on field. Now, Jarrod Gillett has gone to the monitor. He's looked at it again. He feels as though there was enough contact on the ball prior to Gyokeres going to ground, and he's overturned his decision. I mean, my opinion is this. I think that we don't want to be forensically examining these decisions, and there is a slight touch on the ball, but that doesn't negate the fact that Pope has come out a little bit recklessly and collided with Gyokeres. I mean, I think it's a penalty, and I think it should have been check complete, and the decision should have stood. That there was the original decision on field made by the referee.
So there was a fantastic takedown of the decision by Joe Hart, who went through everything step by step on Match of the Day on Sunday night. And one of the key things that he says, the reason why it isn't a foul is because there's no forward motion from Nick Pope after he has contacted the ball. Do you think that is not enough to negate the foul?
Yeah,
do you disagree with that?
Yeah, I disagree with that. I just think that the player Gyokeres is going towards the goal line. He's the ball is there for him to get. There's a slight toe on it as he played it, as he touched it. Does it negate it? I think when you break things down forensically, like Joe Hart did last night, you can make a case for that. But I think what you've got to do sometimes is look at it in real time. My initial decision was penalty, and I stand by that thought process.
I was on social media last night, and Arsenal fans were very quick to point out similarities between William Saliba's challenge on João Pedro last year in the Brighton game and Burmo's incident with Robert Sanchez last week. And clips were doing the round with Howard Webb talking about that Saliba João Pedro incident with the words, "That touch on the ball doesn't negate the possibility of a penalty. There's still heavy contact. There's late contact on a player who hasn't played the ball. The ball has touched him." Now, obviously, having seen that, we're expecting that the refereeing fraternity will also have that in the back of their mind when making these decisions. So why is there a lack of consistency between those three incidents, and are they the same?
No incidents are the same on a football field, Sam. Everyone is different, and the referee and the VAR will judge that accordingly on its own merits, that's for sure. I think that the bits that can be confusing sometimes is when you get a touch on the ball. That doesn't negate the fact that there's a foul, but sometimes a player can play the ball and there's a clear playing of the ball. I think with the one at Newcastle yesterday, there was a slight toe on the ball from Nick Pope. I don't think that negates the award of a penalty. But as I said, all three incidents are different. If you just go back a week, you talk about the Sanchez one, he flew out the penalty area. Yeah, there was a slight touch on the ball, but he came out in a reckless fashion. Slightly different. The ball was bouncing and was higher. On this one, it was on the ground.
So he doesn't have any care for the safety of the player as he comes out, Sanchez. So he's being a little bit reckless. So Nick Pope isn't, because he stops what? But at the same time, we're saying it should be a penalty. I don't really understand the sort of the difference between the two. What are you saying?
I think the one at Newcastle yesterday should have stood. I think it should have been checked complete, albeit there is a touch on the ball. You know, you look at that from behind the goal, you're re-examining it, you're looking at it again. I don't think it stands out as that clear and obvious error, but the referee, Jared Gillett, has the final decision. You know, he's going over to the monitor, he can look at that, which he did, and he felt there was enough contact on the ball, i.e. Nick Pope has played the ball, and he turned his decision over. I just think in this situation, because there's just that little toe away, is it a clear and obvious error, and does it negate the fact that it should have been a penalty kick? I think the on-field decision at the time was right, and I think he should have stood with that decision.
Okay, obviously there was more dissent from Arteta and Saka post-match. Has the concept of clear and obvious been lost? Is that the right wording?
I think people discuss this a lot now, and what we talk about moreover is ref's call. You know, the referee makes that call, the referee makes that decision. I mean, they've played around with the wording about clear and obvious, and a lot of people don't like it. But I think what we do have to have is we have to make sure that when a decision is overturned, it is clearly and obviously wrong. Wherever it goes, that's wrong. It's not about unpicking decisions. So that's your task this week, Sam. You've got to go away and think of some new words, and let's see how we go with it.
Well, it's interesting because this isn't clearly and obviously wrong, is it? I mean, we're all still debating whether it is or it isn't a penalty. So therefore, it can't be clearly wrong by the referee. So on that case, I suppose the right decision would have been referee's call, which was a penalty to Arsenal. It wasn't, but they still won the game. Also in the match, same end, same game, Newcastle winger Anthony Elanga crossing the ball and hitting Gabriel on the arm as the ball deflected up with the scores level. Referee Jared Gillett did not award a penalty. The VAR agreed. Now, why does the deflection take away the fact that Gabriel's arm is a mile away from his body?
I think it comes in the interpretation of handball, Sam. I think we've seen a real sensible approach to handball in the Premier League, especially last season going into this season, because I've spent probably my post-refereeing career discussing handball and talking about handball, and it's probably the most discussed and argued decision in the game. We've seen law changes every 2 years about handball, you know, when you control the ball before you score a goal, etc., etc. Make yourself unnaturally bigger. Is your arm expected in the expected position for that, you know, any given situation? But what they talk about here is, you know, you get a clear deflection that results in a significant change in trajectory. And what it does, it clearly deflects off the Arsenal player's leg onto his arm. And you could, Sam, listen to me. It carries a real greater weight. If you can cast your mind back, and I'm going to test you now, 2 years ago, Luton were in the Premier League, and it was an early game on a Saturday. You know what I'm going to talk about? And there's a cross came and it deflected off a player's thigh and hit his arm above his head.
Yeah.
And we had a massive debate after that game whether that was the right decision or not. For me, I think there's an acceptance, there's a sensibility about the awarding of handball. I am comfortable with this situation and especially the interpretation.
Yeah, well, hold on a second. It's a common misconception, actually, that the deflection bit is in law. It isn't. Law 12 doesn't state anything about the deflection. That is guidance that is given by the Premier League to its referees, in which it says, for instance, a deflection alters the trajectory of the ball significantly, and there's no reaction time. In that case, I understand why you give the sort of benefit of the doubt to the defender. But that isn't the case here. That deflection does not significantly alter the trajectory of the ball. And his arm was a mile up anyway. So he was already having his arm in an unnatural position, which made his body significantly bigger.
I'm disagreeing with you. Because it's from close range, it's blasted in, it deflects off his foot. If it doesn't touch him, I get it. Sam, if I put my arms behind my back, is that a natural position?
No, but if you slide in with your arm above your head in anywhere else in Europe, that's going to be a penalty. There's no way in the Champions League that is not given.
You'll always see a different interpretation with handball around the world. It's nothing new.
Is that right?
I think we've got it. I think we are in a really good position with handball. I think last season there may have been a handful of penalties given for handball. I think there's more of an acceptance. It's a really, really difficult decision to make. It's one that causes more controversy than ever. We actually saw an incident last year in a game at Fulham where the VAR recommended a review for a handball penalty and the referee went to the monitor and said, no, I'm sticking with my original decision. So I think we should leave it where it is. I think, as I said, it's blasted in. It's low, it hits his foot, jumps up, hits him on the arm. Sam, you're looking for trouble. Don't look for trouble. Keep it simple. Keep it simple. Let's just stay with the on-field decision checked. And there wasn't too many dissenting voices following that one. So let's just keep the consistency with handball in the Premier League.
Hold on, if your lot hadn't been looking for trouble over the course of the week, we wouldn't have had forensic analysis of the first incident we've done.
15 all.
By the way, a phrase I never thought we'd hear. I think we're in a really good position with handball. Okay, let's move on to the Voltemada Gabriel love affair, which developed during the game. The push in the back from Voltemada on Gabriel, I'm not going to spend too much time on because it was so minute. I don't think that there's any sort of discussion that needs to be had on that. It was very soft and VAR didn't even check it for too long. But let's talk about what happened afterwards when Gabriel ran into him. Obviously, Gabriel goes on to score the winner in this game. Should he have been sent off?
No, he shouldn't have been sent off, but it wasn't. I don't think it was seen on field by the match officials. In fact, I'm pretty confident it wasn't. But it would have been checked by the VAR for an act of violent conduct, obviously a red card offence. They've cleared it. I think, yeah, there's contact. Is it negligible? Yeah, it is. If it's seen on field, what's the outcome there? For me, Sam, I think that's a yellow card for unsporting behaviour. I don't think it meets the threshold for a red for violent conduct.
Okay, all right, we'll move on. Mark Clattenburg refereed a Champions League final, a European Championship final, an Olympic final, and he's got the tattoos to prove it. Yesterday, he took to social media to have a go at Howard Webb. Not happy at all with Howard's running of the PGMOL. He said, another match where we're discussing the standards of refereeing in the Premier League. Hashtagged it Newcastle Arsenal. And then the key phrase, time for Webb to accept he has failed. Have these two got previous? Were they big refereeing rivals back in the day, Chris?
I don't remember that, but what I do remember is that, Howard Webb and Mark Clattenburg were both outstanding referees at their time. Mark's track record there with what you've just mentioned, the game he's refereed. He was an exceptionally good referee and respected by the players. Obviously, social media, we talk about it every week, don't we? There's obviously some frustration there, and social media gives you the opportunity to air your views. That's his prerogative. He can do that. He's made an observation. That's the way he feels.
Obviously, we had the incident where he went to Nottingham Forest and acted as a refereeing consultant to Evangelos Marinakis and his group. He went off to referee in the Middle East, which denied the FA and the PGMOL and the Premier League a place at a World Cup, or refereeing place at a World Cup. He is quite an outspoken character. Is it helpful that he's pointing these things out, or is he just being honest? Does he want Howard's job?
I don't know about whether he wants Howard's job or not. You'd have to ask him that question, but he's got an opinion. You know, he's a referee with a superb track record, you know, on field, and he's got an opinion like many other match officials do.
So does that worry you about the stage of the game? If a referee of that standing is criticising to this level, does it worry you about the standard of refereeing in the Premier League?
No, it doesn't, because what we've got now is with social media is everybody's got an opinion. Everybody can take a photograph. Anybody can pick up on a trend and theme and have a go at a referee. You know, Premier League games are really in the goldfish bowl now. Everything is analysed to the nth degree, and somebody's got an opinion on every decision, every foul, every throw-in, every goal kick corner situation. It's the way it is. Mark has you know, he's heard his views on social media. That's his opinion. Look, we're talking about some decisions at the weekend where referees and VARs have probably got a decision wrong, where they'll learn from it. But you're in the goldfish bowl. It's the way society is now, Sam. It's not just football.
Do you think Howard is doing a good job?
Howard is working really, really hard. I think he's got a good bunch of officials. He's brought in more training, more education, more development. I think one of the things he has done as well is given more referees opportunities to step up a level, to referee at another level. You know, we talk about mid-season promotions now. The opportunities for refereeing have never been as good. And I have to tell you, Sam, when I finished refereeing, I decided that I would never do it again. If I could go back under the present regime and the way refereeing is now, I would start again, because there's never been a better time to be a referee.
I think one of the things that they do really well now is that they communicate much better and explain these decisions. And look, you know, I think they accept that they don't get everything right. I think this start of the season has been more difficult than they anticipated, bearing in mind that they've done a lot on trying to improve the consistency. But I also think that us understanding, and one of the reasons we're doing this show is because we want to understand the intricacies of the law. We want to understand how the decision process is made, is helpful, because we get a better understanding of what the referees are going through. That also is a better thing. But at the same time, you can understand why people have frustrations when decisions are making match-changing impacts on a week-to-week basis.
Yeah, I understand that. And I think if you go back 3 years, with the PGMOL, as it was called then, now it's the PGMO, there was no real media. And now you've got situations where you've got the mic'd up refs. Howard Webb does his media briefings that we were on one last week, weren't we? We attended, where we get an explanation to decisions and an understanding, and people get an opportunity to ask questions. I think he's been really open in that respect, and I think that's important. But even so, you can go out and you can explain a decision and people still won't agree with you, because football, you know, is black and white, but in the middle there's that grey area. And it always gives us debate, it always gives us discussion, and sometimes it gives us an argument or two.
In towards him, Burmo in front of goal. He tries to tuck it home. Collins gets a touch on him. The referee points to the spot. Fernandez steps up, right-footed. It's saved by the goalkeeper down to his left. Brentford have got away with two then. Collins didn't get sent off for a denial of a goal-scoring opportunity.
Did he deny it without making an attempt to play the ball? 100% he did.
Brentford 3, Manchester United 1. But this is a match-changing decision, because at 2-1, running onto a dangerous low cross in the 71st minute with Brentford on top, Brian Mbeumo is tugged back by Nathan Collins in the penalty area. The referee, Craig Pawson, eventually awards Manchester United a penalty after consultation with the assistant referee, and he shows Nathan Collins a yellow card. Now, we were speculating on air, Stuart Pearce and I, about his intention to play the ball. There was none, so why wasn't he sent off?
Well, he should have been, but I think in the first instance a penalty wasn't given on field. There was a slight delay. I think the assistant referee on that side, Lee Betts, has obviously spoken to the referees, communicated that in his opinion, because he's got the best view side on, which is great teamwork. Craig Pawson points to the spot, and then the next thing is the penalty's given. Great, that's the decision we want, but there's some more to it, isn't there? Quite clearly, and it's the Collins situation. So what we're talking about here is it the denial of a goal scoring opportunity, and should Andy Madley, the VAR, have recommended a review? Well, yes, he should. because that was a clear red card offence in my opinion. You know, if you take that defender away, Collins, look where Mbeumo is, look where the ball is, what's the likelihood of keeping or regaining possession of the ball? It's there, it fits the criteria. In my opinion, the VAR, Andy Madley, should have recommended a review, and I'm pretty sure if Craig Pawson would have gone to the referee review area, looked at the monitor, then we would have seen a red card shown.
Amarim was told, and he spoke to me afterwards and said that he had been given the advice by the referee that the red card wasn't given because Bryan Mbeumo wasn't in control of the ball. Explain that.
I think that was something that was muted, but if you look at what the laws of the game say, it's the likelihood of keeping or gaining control. If you try and reflect back to that incident, Sam, and you take the defender away, the ball is there. Mbeumo's got a great chance to have a shot at goal.
Amarim's basic point is that if he doesn't get pulled back by Nathan Collins, he gets control of the ball.
That's what I'm saying.
Therefore, it's got to be a red card.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you take the
so why did that explanation come out? Because it wasn't just the manager that was told that. That was the explanation that the PGMOL put out on their Twitter feed.
Yeah, what you've got to understand with the Twitter feed, it comes from the Premier League Match Centre. It's the Premier League Match Centre account, and it's factual. What they give is factual. They don't give opinion. I think that's worth bearing in mind. Look, there's no hiding from the fact this should have been a review. This should have been a situation where the referee Pawson goes to the monitor and looks at it. What I was trying to explain to you is if you freeze frame that and you remove the defender Collins, look where Mbeumo is and look where the ball is. He's got a chance to score a goal. He's got a really good opportunity. It's a clear opportunity. It should have been a red card.
Okay. Is there any law to stop the Brentford players delaying the kick further by making their substitutions? Because there was 4 and a bit minutes between the moment the penalty is awarded and Bruno Fernandes taking it. Could the referee have managed the delay between the award of the penalty and the taking of it a little bit better?
We talk about time a lot now and added time. We had it last week, didn't we, in the Merseyside derby? I think during the review process that all the subs and players should remain off the field, or the subs should remain off the field of play. So once the review's completed, then you can do your substitutions, and there's nothing to stop you doing that. So I think that's a bit of a cheap shot, really.
I'm asking the questions that everyone's asking.
Good.
Right, let's move on.
And it's the equaliser from the super sub, Federico Chiesa. There is a VAR check going on for, I think, a potential handball, actually. Does that left arm make contact?
It looks like it does to me. I have a feeling this one's going to be chalked off, to be honest.
The goal stands. The Liverpool fans celebrate.
Crystal Palace 2, Liverpool 1. The referee, Chris Kavanagh, the VAR, Matt Donoghue. Basically, when Liverpool score their goal, in the build-up to it, there's a potential handball from Mo Salah. Federico Chiesa is the man who scores it. VAR look at it. They realise that as the cross comes in, there is a hand that goes up from Mo Salah, but there is no clear evidence to suggest that Salah handled the ball. I've looked at this 2 or 3 times, actually, over and over again, and I can't definitively see that there's definite contact. But then when you go on social media, you see more conclusive proof and video and photographic evidence, which seems to have convinced everybody that it should have been a handball. What's your verdict on this one?
Well, I'm like you, Sam. I've looked at it more than 2 or 3 times. I've probably spent the weekend looking at it because of the noise around this situation, and I had no conclusive evidence. I mean, if we're showing all this stuff on people are seeing it on their phones, I think referees might start going out now with whistles, a yellow, a red card, and a smartphone. If that's what people are deciding on. I mean, it looked a bit awkward, didn't it, with Salah with his arm in the air, and then of course you got the other bit tugging at his shirt as well. So there might have been something else to look at there. But as you say, no conclusive evidence. Checked by the VAR, Matt Donoghue, and nothing given on field by the referee, Chris Kavanagh. So play on.
This would have been a massive incident had Crystal Palace then not gone up and scored a winner at the other end. Does the fact that actually Crystal Palace ended up getting 3 points take away the sort of spotlight from this decision? Because I think it would have been forensically analysed even more if they hadn't have won.
Well, I don't think so. What it is, I mean, referees are judged, on their performance. And at every game, I'm not sure you know about this, that there's a match delegate. who's
Yeah.
independent of the referees, who's a former player or manager, who looks at every decision, the referee's performance, and writes a comprehensive report on them. So they're not marking their own homework in these situations, and everything will be analysed. But coming back to my original point, I've looked at this a lot, and I just don't see a handball in this situation.
Do you think that some of the images that were doing the rounds on social media have been altered slightly, or can they be deceptive because they're still images? Well, because a lot of people were convinced that there definitely was contact here.
Well, fitting it to suit the narrative. I mean, can you cast your mind back to Huddersfield Man United with the lines for offside a couple of 3 years ago? You know what I'm saying. That's the way people...
The wiggly line.
Yeah, that's the world we live in, Sam.
Okay, all right, move on. Let's see if you can wriggle out of this one. Chelsea 1, Brighton 3, a potential red card and a penalty. Malagusto kicking Yakuba Minte in the head in the 87th minute. No penalty from the referee, who was Simon Hooper. Darren England, involved again, was looking at it in the VAR booth, and he deemed that there was no conclusive evidence that Gusto made any contact with Minte's head. Why was this not reviewed? Why was this not a penalty?
I think it should be seen on field by the referee, Simon Hooper, shouldn't it? I mean, it's a penalty kick, isn't it? There's not a great deal else to say. The VAR looked at it. Darren England, he viewed all his angles, and from what he saw, he couldn't see any contact. For me, Sam, I just think this is a decision that is not a difficult decision. Simon Hooper should see it on field. We can only go with what the VAR said. He didn't find any conclusive evidence that there was contact. Sam, it's a penalty.
I mean, again, this phrase, no conclusive evidence, Chris, cropping up. Is that just a catch-all phrase to get officials out of trouble?
No, it's a phrase that's used. I mean, I'm pretty sure that if the VAR had have seen some contact, I mean, I think there was a massive clue with this one as well. I think the player actually gave himself up, didn't he, Gusto? He just stood there, what have I done? I think this will go down as an error, for sure. Penalty kick should have been seen on field, wasn't seen on field. I'm pretty sure a review should have been recommended.
Are you worried about the number of discussions we're having this week, the decisions that should have been given that weren't?
No, because what you find is you have peaks and troughs with match rounds. I think, last week we didn't have many situations. This is just one of those weeks where there's been a lot, there's been a lot of intense football, a lot of, some big decisions to talk about. But I think, as I said, coming back to my original point, this is one decision that should have been seen on field, and moreover, it wasn't. It should have been rectified by the VAR.
Okay, one decision that was given, and I think is the right one, is Trevor Chalobah being sent off for denial of a goal-scoring opportunity for a challenge on Diego Gomez in the 50th minute. Andre Santos, I don't know what he's doing, playing the ball to Diego Gomez. That looked as if he was going straight in on goal, and then Chalobah, coming from a difficult position, gets in a tangle with the Brighton man. Chelsea initially thought they might get away with it until VAR intervened. I mean, should Simon Hooper have sent him off initially?
I always talk about the ball's the clue. This was a bit of an anomaly because the ball didn't shoot out to the left or right. It actually shot to the goal line. Maybe if the referee had had a different angle, he may have come up with a different view. But we've been critical sometimes of VAR. I think this was an excellent intervention, to be fair, because if you think about the bigger picture, with no VAR on this game, Trevor Chalobah stays on, and it's a situation as a referee you would look at it, after the game, watch it back, and you're sort of saying to yourself, how have I missed that? So one to reflect on, but, missed by the on-field refereeing team, but picked up by VAR and the right outcome.
Aston Villa 3, Fulham 1. The referee is Andy Madley. Matt Donoghue is the VAR. We've got a couple of incidents in this game, and Marco Silva is absolutely furious. Someone asked him a question about the standard of officiating in this game, and he talked for 1 minute 45 seconds. I don't think he took a breath during that rant. He was absolutely apoplectic. The first thing he's annoyed about is that Josh King gets booked for simulation. 22nd minute, the visitors are leading 1-0. So at this stage, Fulham are in front. Josh King goes into the box. He tumbles over. Emi Martinez and he come together. Now, he gets a booking for diving instead of a penalty. The referee's call of no penalty and the yellow card to King for simulation was checked and confirmed by VAR, with King deemed to be going to ground before any contact was made. Was that the right decision? Because despite what you said on last week's show, has the reputation of Josh King gone before the player here?
No, it's not. What you've got to do, you've got to judge every incident on its merits. And there's a massive difference between this one this week and last week. If you think about last week, he runs into the penalty area, he runs into Jordan Henderson, and quite rightly he's cautioned by Michael Oliver for simulation. This is a different one. I think that when he's in possession of the ball, he knocks it to the right, and then he's going to the left to get round the goalkeeper, and it looks like he's actually going to ground. I think he's actually changing direction. And Martinez kicks his leg. I think if the referee had given a penalty on field, it would have been check complete. Sometimes, you know, what's happened here is Andy Madley, the referee's cautioning for simulation when there's contact. I think if he doesn't give a penalty, I think there is another way you can deal with the situation, and that's what we call the third way. So you don't give a penalty and you don't caution for simulation, you allow play to continue, and that would probably carry a little bit more credence. But my initial thought with this one, I thought this was a penalty.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people did as well, and it left Marco Silva in particular absolutely fuming. Is his team on the wrong end of more decisions than most, or is he just more vocal about it than other people?
I think there's been a number of incidents recently, hasn't there? We can talk about the Chelsea-Fulham game. We can talk about the goal that Lenny Yoro scored when there was the arms in the back of Calvin Bassey. And obviously this one this week, he's obviously a little bit frustrated, which, you know, if you're losing football matches, you're going to be frustrated. But he's got an avenue he can go down. I'm pretty confident of that. But... you know, that's how it falls sometimes.
Well, one of the things that he is annoyed about is the potential handball by Matty Cash in the 24th minute. And you've already cited the incident which he thinks sets the precedent, which is against Chelsea earlier in the season. Ryan Sessegnon is penalised for a handball after Trevor Chalobah sends a cross into the box. He's turning his back and his arms are judged to be outside the natural silhouette of his body. A similar sort of experience befalls Matty Cash here. The referee's call of no penalty, though, is checked and confirmed by the VAR, with the action on this occasion by Cash deemed to be not a handball offence. They're suggesting the arm was in a justifiable position. How can his arm be in a justifiable position if Ryan Sessegnon's arm is not in a justifiable position?
I think the two different things. I looked at this one. Yeah, there was a bit of noise around it, but the way Matty Cash flies into it, I think his arm, it does strike his arm clearly, but his arm is low. I put myself in the position of the referee here. I am not given a penalty for that, Sam. I just don't see that as a handball offence. Yeah, it strikes his arm, as I've mentioned. I'm comfortable we see that. But is that deliberate? Is that where his arm's expected to be? I think on this occasion, because he's diving in, he's sort of turning his body away and it strikes it. I don't see that as a penalty.
Well, where are the excuses here? There's no deflection. He does turn his back. I spoke to Mickey Graves, a former fullback, and says to me, this has got to be a penalty for the simple fact that Matt Cash shouldn't turn his back on the ball anyway. He should go out to confront it. And by turning his back, he is making himself unnaturally bigger. He said, actually, it was cop-out defending, which might have been a little bit harsh, but he's a fullback and he knows better than me. Either way, this arm is miles away from his body. So, if we're in the Champions League again, we're seeing a penalty for this without doubt. If we're in Spain, we're seeing a penalty for this. So why is there more leniency in England towards this type of situation?
I think because what we see abroad is we see a lot more penalties given, and when penalties are given, we see a lot more yellow cards, and we try and get consistency. And I speak to lots of people who work on broadcast who cover these competitions, and sometimes they're sort of shaking their head going, that can't be handball. So I think we've got a real sense and sensibility of what handball is in this country. I don't think Matty Cash's arm was miles away from his body, Sam. I think it's there or thereabouts. If I felt it was a penalty, I would tell you. I just don't see that as a penalty, mate.
Okay. All right. When we eventually get picked up by a big promotion company and we go on tour and we're selling merch, there is going to be a Chris Foy T-shirt doing the rounds, which says, "We are in a good place with handball." That's definitely going to be your catchphrase from now on.
I tell you
Chris,
what, I like it, Sam. Keep it going.
Chris, thank you very much. Appreciate you giving us your time and your explanation. I know it's not easy, especially on a week where it's been rather difficult for referees and VARs. If you want to rate and review the podcast, please do so by giving us 5 stars and tell all your mates about us. We're on the talkSPORT YouTube channel and on the Premier League All Access feed, wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be back at the same time next week to review all of the big decisions in the Premier League. And you never know, next week we may have absolutely nothing to talk about. I wouldn't bet on it though.